You're listening to the Current Word on WSHO Radio in New Orleans, Louisiana. Right before the break, we played two clips. One is reminiscent of Hillary Clinton when she adapted a dialect, an affectation of speech, which many found to be offensive. And now it seems like Representative Alexandria Cortez has now attempted the same thing when speaking before the National Action Network, which is the organization of Reverend Al Sharpton. Our guest today is Emery McClendon, is back with us. He is with Project 21 and the National Center on Public Policy Research. Emery is a member of Project 21 National Advisory Council. He's a Tea Party organizer, and he is the winner of Americans for Prosperity's 2010 Activist of the Year Award. All right, we'll continue on with our conversation and just kind of talking about what Representative Cortez was doing there. And she was speaking before the National Action Network, but most people took offense at the way that she was speaking and attempting to sort of adapt or what some have called cultural appropriation. She said that she was doing something called code switching, but if it wasn't so sad, it would be funny. She spoke in a very sort of strange way there. She said, Reverend, you bring up a funny anecdote. I'm proud to be a bartender. Ain't nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with working retail, folding clothes for other people to buy. I mean, it was just ridiculous. I wonder how long she had to practice that to get that down. All right, I think we have our guest, Emery McClendon of Project 21. Emery, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can.
Great, thank you. I am on the phone as well today. I'm not in studio, so hopefully we'll be able to have our conversation, and you can hear me and I can hear you. So I played the clip. First, we played the clip of a few years ago when Hillary Clinton did the I know where's tired speech. And now we've got this new young woman in Congress, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who was using an affectation of speech which many found offensive when speaking to the National Action Network. So you, sir, do you have any comments about that? And can you help us to kind of sort this out?
Yes, I do, really, because I think it was a very offensive situation. I think what she was doing was talking down at the crowd because I think that she felt that she, number one, could probably get away with it. And then secondly, condescending to the audience because she thought that she had a captive audience that would really elevate her status of being there, speaking to them because of who she is and the position that she holds. We find that happens quite a bit, not only in black political events, but in the black church and in the black community whenever some leaders from other communities come in. And, of course, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez took advantage of the situation, and when she first began her speech, she was talking in a normal tone, and then things began to slow down as she began to approach the issues that affected the black community and the things that she wanted to get across to them. And I have labeled that myself as black speech because it compares wholeheartedly to the other side of the issue, which is blackface. And it seems to me that people like her and, of course, our ex-Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is using this black speech in a manner to get around the controversial issues about blackface, but yet at the same time pander to the audiences that they are speaking to.
Yes, and one thing is later on she said, well, when she was, trying to defend herself for the criticism that people were making, many people were making about her behavior and her speech, she told CNN's Don Lemon that she was from the Bronx and that she was also trying to intimate that she had a, hard scrabble, poor kid growing up, and that's where she came from. The truth is number one, people from the Bronx don't have an accent with the affectation that she had used in that speech. But secondly, that she came from she moved out of the Bronx when she was at 5 years old. She grew up in a more wealthy suburb called Westchester in the New York area. She went to a high school for affluent kids, Boston University, a private college. So she was, she may have been a bartender before she became a congresswoman, but she really, when we're thinking of service workers, et cetera, in our country and lower income individuals, she really is not, part of that, doesn't have that same life experience that people have. Now, other thing is that people took offense that she was more or less trying to categorize Black people in lower income retail and, occupations, not recognizing the many Black people in our country and that have done extremely well. We have a large Black middle class now, and that have gone on to become extremely wealthy. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that was another one of my concerns, and I addressed that wholeheartedly in the press release and in the article that I wrote for Project 21. And that is, she continually, throughout her statements, seemed to condescend to Black people that, hey, you should be happy that you are able to cook food for people in restaurants, that you are able to work as low-end industrial workers or so forth, or service workers. And she did that in a sense until I think she realized at the end of her speech, well, somewhere at the end of that statement, that she had made that mistake, and then she used herself as an example to say that she was a bartender and look where she had come from as a bartender to achieve the status of being a congresswoman. But it was already too late because the feedback and the scoring had already begun to come in. And as you mentioned before, there were people who were not only offended by her accent, they were offended by those statements as well. Because, as I said in my statement, it seems as though she was trying to keep those people down in those positions rather than elevating in them. And then to top it all off, she used Martin Luther King in her speech a little bit later as an example of her worldview and how she looked at inequality and so forth. Well, Martin Luther King, as we all well know, said that, yes, you should be proud in whatever position that you hold, but he always prouded and encouraged people to pursue the American dream, which meant that you could better yourself no matter where you were in your status at the present time.
Yeah, and you mentioned in your article this quote from Joe Biden from many years ago in which he described President Obama, then candidate Obama. Well, maybe this was even before he became a candidate. He described President Obama as the first mainstream African-American who is articulate and bright and clean and a nice-looking guy. He says, I mean, that's a storybook, man. So you mentioned that. It does harken back to those kinds of comments, and you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I was very offended at the time of that one, too. I about fell out of my chair when he made that statement. And the mainstream media really didn't, at that time, elaborate on that either. But, the conservative media did. And then some of the people that I know and hang out with, Black and white, were very offended by it. And they said, how in the world can a presidential contender or senator, U.S. senator, get away with something, making a statement like that? That was a very condescending and racist statement because there were other Blacks who have ran for president, Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, of course, and not reflecting back on their character or their brain power or whatever it is that made them run for the office of president. That statement was very uncalled for because there was no reason to label Barack Obama, and put him in that situation because you were running against him. We have people that are bright no matter what status they come from, no matter what their racial background is. And for one candidate to make that kind of a statement against another candidate, or a senator to make that kind of a statement against a candidate like that, is very offensive and just as bad as Blackspeech or blackface.
Yeah, it's amazing. and there were, we could hear in that clip that we played that the members of the audience were sort of amening her. And why do you think it is that people in the Black community and in other ethnic communities are willing to give these Democrats a pass, whereas if a conservative or a Republican would have used similar type of affectation of speech, or even alluded to the things like Joe Biden did, or some of the things that Ocasio-Cortez said about the ability of Black people to achieve laudable and good goals. With they're not destined to become service workers the rest of their lives. Why do they give Democrats a pass on this? What's up with that?
I'm glad you brought that up, because I grew up in the Black church very heavily. My uncle was a bishop in the largest Black denomination that there was. So I got a chance to travel around a lot with him and go to different meetings and go to different conventions and so forth. And I got to observe how people reacted to different people. I've also been a public servant in my life for a period of about 7 to 8 years. And then I've also worked with the public, and I retired from a job that I had lots of interaction with the public. And what happens, I think, from my experiences that I've seen, especially in the Black church and in the Black community, when you go to meetings where there's a lot of Black people and they bring in a elected official who may not be from the same background, who may not be from the same district and so forth, they feel a sense of awe, and they're awestruck, and they also feel that they want to make a connection, that they feel that they are connected also, because they are Democrats, and we've been taught all of our lives that the Democrats have done for us, that the Democrats look out for us, and that the Democrats are our savior, and that without them we can't do anything, and we must rely on them and bring them into the fold. So when they speak to us, they are sort of awestruck. And when they go down to the Black vernacular, that really gets into Black people. A lot of the lower class Black people, especially, as we noticed in the AOC comments, most of the negative comments came first of all from more influential Blacks, but those in the lower class and those in the working class prodded her on, cheered her on, only because of the reasons that I had mentioned before. Mm-hmm. They think that this, like I said, me being in the Black church and going with my uncle to all these different conventions and different Black meetings and so forth, whenever a white person got up and spoke, and they were talking in what they call, quote unquote, the white man's tongue or white man's language, they didn't get into it. But when they felt like they were able to get into the groove of the Black vernacular, that's when the people begin to stand up, shout back, not paying attention to what's actually being said, but just to the way it's delivered. And that's a bad thing, because it's time for our Black leaders to teach our people that you must listen to what you're being told, and you must begin to think for yourselves and not rely on a swing of the mood during the moment.
Wow. Well, that's powerful, Emery, and I appreciate you sharing that with our listeners. And we just hope that people will begin to see beyond this affected speech and the way that and the things that they're saying, and look at what these people actually stand for, which are first contrary to the best interest of the people of our country, of every ethnic group, but also really these people like Cortez and others, they do not have the best interest of Black people at heart, and the values that they have are contrary to the things that are being taught through the Bible and I'm sure in the Black churches. So it's really an amazing phenomenon to see Democrats be able to hold on to the base the way they are. Do you have any final comments for us, Emery? We appreciate your time today.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. And it's a very perplexing situation that we're dealing with here, because we've thought about this, we've tried, we've sat down, many Black leaders, along with myself, and we've thought about ways how we can combat this. But yet we're faced with the same situation over and over and over again, that, hey, this is cool. We feel like they're one of us. And that was one of the things that blacks said about Bill Clinton. Hey, he's just like us. You know, he's pimping the people, and that we like to be pimped, and that's the way it goes. And it's a shame that they don't take, first of all, the pastors from our churches in the black community, our leaders from the black community, sit down with people and give them the whole counsel of God, give them the tools that they need to sit down and discern what's good for us and our families and for every American as a whole. And we need to sit down and realize that until we get to that point, we're never going to progress, but we're always going to be held as pawns and be used as tools in the hands of the Democrat Party.
Amen. Well, that's why we so appreciate Project 21 and the National Center for Public Policy Research, because y'all put out great information, have wonderful speakers that can help others to understand where we need to go as a nation and as a community. So I thank you so much for that. Emery McClendon, thank you for being with us today, and we look forward to speaking with you again soon, sir.
Thank you. We're very happy to be here, and God bless.
God bless you, sir.